There is something many designers misunderstand. They believe design begins with inspiration. It doesn't. Design begins with function, purpose. Function is the invisible architecture of every successful space. It is the architectural intelligence beneath aesthetics. And if that structure is weak, no amount of beautiful finishes will save the project. Today, we're going to talk about why. If we haven't met, I am Tam Wynn, an interior designer and builder with over 16 years of experience in design and construction. Welcome to episode 1 of my Design Thesis Series. One of the biggest mistakes I see when starting a new design project, especially among younger designers, is they are rushing toward aesthetics. They are excited to choose their favorite materials and finishes. The flooring, the lighting, the velvet, the color palette. But they do this before they have defined the problem that the space is meant to solve. Professional design is not about decoration. Professional design is about strategic thinking. Before a single line is drawn, a lead designer defines a functional hypothesis. This answers what must the space do? How should it operate? How will people move? Where will they pause? How should they feel? Function is not merely logistical, it is psychological. What functional programming actually means? Let's demystify the language. Functional programming simply means the user flow, adjacency, activity zones, behaviors patterns. It is the logic and relationships within the space. In a residential project, this might mean how the kitchen relates to the family room. When private zones transition from gathering spaces, whether circulation creates friction or ease. In a commercial project, it might mean how long a guest stays, where attention is directed, how spatial pacing influences perception. Great design minimizes resistance. Poor design can irritate even when the space looks beautiful. You may not consciously notice backflow, but your nervous system does. This is why architect Louis Sullivan famously said, "Form follows function." A design should be shaped by its intended purpose, not by aesthetics alone. Let's examine a master example, Kelly Wessler's Proper Hotel in Austin. The design is bold, eclectic, and visually layered. But its success is not in aesthetic. It is functional clarity. The guest rooms are layered like private residence. Sleeping zone, lounge zone, work zone. This is multifunctional zoning. But the most intelligent move is circulation. Movement through the hotel intentionally slows guests down. Micro vignettes of art and furniture interrupt transition. Circulation becomes choreographed. You are not simply walking, you are exploring. That is functional intelligence. The key insight is this: functional is emotional as much as practical. When designers study a precedent like this, they should not copy the aesthetic, but They should extract the underlying intelligence. A student might say, my design hypothesis incorporates residential comfort into public space through layered multifunctional zoning. That is a dependable position, and that is design leadership. The shift from decorator to strategic innovator. When you define the function hypothesis first, something shifts. You stop designing based on preference. You begin designing from intent. Decoration becomes defensible. When a client asks, why this layout? You don't just say, because it looks good. You say, because this circulation pattern supports behavior comfort. That is authority. And that authority is what separates decorators from designers. Designers choreograph human experience. Behavioral impact. This is the layer many designers overlook. Ask yourself, does this space speed people up or slow them down? Does it encourage conversation or isolation? Does it feel intimate or monumental? Does it reduce cognitive load or overwhelmment? Every material, proportion, and adjacency affects human psychology. That is why function must come first. Form is simply the physical language that expresses that logic. When function is clear, form becomes inevitable. Why this matters in the real world. Over the years, I've heard many clients complain architects design abstract spaces. The finishes were stunning, the lighting was well curated, and the furniture was expensive. And yet, the space failed. Why? Because no one defined the functional basis. Rooms felt awkward. Transitions were illogical. User behavior was never considered. That's why beauty without structure will collapse. But when the structure is right, even simple materials feel elevated. And that is the invisible power of function. This is why in my design thesis framework, function comes first, before form, before sustainability, and before aesthetics. In episode 2, we will move into form not as decoration, but as the design language is shaped by purpose. Then we will explore sustainability not as a trend, but as a philosophy of responsibility and longevity. And finally, we will bring everything together in a design thesis competition model, in which students synthesize all three principles, because true design leadership requires synthesis. If this way of thinking resonates with you, you are not interested in decoration, but you are interested in mastery. And mastery begins with structure. Function is the invisible architecture of design, and when it is clear, everything else has the chance to endure. Thank you for watching, and I see you in episode 2.